Now, you want to get an erection and sustain it for long, but for some reasons you're not able to achieve that. There might be several things that you're doing, and we're going to correct them in this video. You start with the first one, which is chemical castrations. There might be several things that you're doing, and behind the scenes, you're just nipping wires one after the other in your dashboard to a point where eventually your car is not igniting. Now, let's start with drug abuse. Now, this one, and start with the hardcore drugs. Start with meth and cocaine. Now, these two are extreme vasoconstrictors, meaning that they're going to shrink the blood vessels. Remember the mechanism of getting an erection? You'll have to have the dilation of the chambers in your penis for you to get that erection. But if you're taking something that is forcing your system to shrink the chambers, then you're not going to get an erection. The second category, we have opioids. We have heroin here, and we have some painkillers. Now, these ones, they crush testosterone like there is nothing else better they do. They take it to the drains. And we have marijuana. Now, this is quite common. You find it almost everywhere. Okay, I'm talking about Kenya, where it's quite common. Okay, you might be confused because sometimes you'll even hear or even see on X and other platforms where people say, hey, I took several puffs and I was so good in bed. Now, we have something we call THC. Now, initially, it gives you a boost, so it's going to give you an erection, but over time, your testosterone will be affected and they're going to be low as time progresses. So chronic use, they're going to crush your testosterone. So yes, THC can give you some, initial boost, but then remember, marijuana is quite addictive. And this addiction will now lead to the chronic use that we've said here will lower your testosterone. So yes, you might benefit initially, and then over time, you're not even able to, raise to the occasion. The ignition is not working because you need some wires behind the scenes. For the drugs, fixing the situation, and especially the hardcore drugs, rehabilitation. And especially if they've gone to a point of destroying your testosterone, so the levels are so low, you can get hormonal replacement therapy for the time being. The second one is rewiring of your brains, and two things can happen here. These are the most common ones. We have one, which is porn addiction, and this is quite common nowadays because internet is everywhere, and also accessibility to the sites everywhere. If the site is blocked in your country, you can use a VPN, you can easily access that, and yeah. So you have oversensitization of, dopamine receptors in the brains to a point where when you have an actual partner, because the threshold is a little bit high, you are not able to achieve that. So the sensitization down to the drains. Another one is excessive masturbation, and you remember we talked about the death grip, where you grip hard. This is when you are desensitizing your nerves. So when you have an actual partner sex, physiologically that organ might not be able to do what your hand can be able to do, so you end up not getting an erection, or even when you get an erection, it's very weak. Or if you actually get an erection which is hard, you're not able to sustain it for long. Now, this is a little bit easier. There is something I call rebooting. Just reboot the system. That is just, detox. Just stay away from porn and masturbation for 30 days. Then push it to 60 days, then 90 days, 6 months. You're going to refresh. Your body is going to come back and you're back to normal, unless you've been doing this for like 90 years. Okay, that will be excessive. You might be doing it for like 30 years, a little bit more. And also being aggressive when it comes to masturbation will contribute to this. And this is one of the biggest reasons you usually tell people, if you've not started masturbation, don't start. You're going to be addicted, and you might not be able to control how much of it you get in a day, and you might end up getting addicted and do it excessively or aggressively, and you end up having erectile dysfunction. So yeah, it's safe to do masturbation, but it can be a little bit hard for you to control, so stay away from it completely. And if you started, I think we need to what do we do? We start a challenge. If you are, going through masturbation, maybe you can make it like a challenge. I make a video. We take how many days? 60 days. Each and every day we slot a thing that you'll be doing instead of masturbation. Second day, what you're going to do instead of masturbation. Third day, for all those 60 days, and we see the results at the end of it and see if it worked for you. And if not, then, we crank it up, because we should make ourselves better using this platform. So the other one is you try to avoid the death grip, where you squeeze everything hard. Stop squeezing. Try to, if you must masturbate, try as much as possible to emulate what you would find in a vagina. Number 3, static muscles. There is a difference between men and women, whereby men have a higher muscle density compared to women. Also, men have a higher testosterone level compared to women. Both have to have testosterone for them to have higher sexual urge. So If you're a man, you need to keep moving your muscles all the time. And this is one of the reasons you have a higher muscle density, part of the reason you have a higher testosterone. So you need to have less fat and more muscles. So there are several things you can do. And by the way, I've noted that I sit down a lot nowadays. What I'm trying to do, I'll include in my life currently, is moving more when I get time. Because at work, most of the time I'm seated somewhere just thinking, or maybe just, researching here and there. When I come here, I make a video. I spend the rest of the time just seated here editing that video. I don't get to move a lot. What I'm trying to do is when I'm going to work, because this is when I have a window that I can utilize, I walk. When I'm coming out of work, I walk. At least I get to exercise my muscles. When I get time, I lift something heavy because your muscles, and especially your testosterone, will require you, lifting something a little bit heavy. That is if you're not working in a construction zone where you're lifting heavy things, or you're working in the village where that will be your lifestyle. I think if you're sitting down most of the time, that's a static muscle. That's a danger to you and your lifestyle. Still, when you're not moving, you can become overweight or obese, and this will further hinder your movements. You can also get diabetes, and this will come with nerve damage. Sitting down for too long will increase pressure on your pelvic floor muscles. Also, if you're not exercising the pelvic floor muscles, it's an issue, because even along the things that can come your way are urine incontinence along the way. So something that you can do in this one is Kegel. And by now, I'm sure you know that. You know how to perform Kegel? Like when you're going to urinate, you cut it midway, like a horse. I don't know. You know what we're talking about. We actually discussed how you can do Kegel. And also you need to have a general body movement to cover the whole of this static muscle issue. Moving or exercising. Number 4, smoking is another silent erection killer, and it does that in 2 ways. 1, damage of the endothelium. This is the inner lining of the blood vessels. Remember we said blood circulation is quite important. So if that is damaged, there is constriction, and you're going to deliver less blood. The second way it does that, production of nitric oxide, which is quite important for production of CGMP, which will lead to dilation of the vessels or the chambers that need to have that blood for you to get that erection. Production of that nitric oxide is inhibited, meaning that you're not going to get an erection. Or if you're going to get that because you have less nitric oxide, you're going to, not get strong erection or even sustain them. So the best thing for the whole of this category, that's when it comes to smoking, is just quitting. Now another thing is alcohol. This is quite overlooked, but alcohol, I've seen people saying, hey, whiskey D. Now you see, yeah, you can get that, but then over time several things will happen. You have your liver, which controls the hormones. Not only the liver, we have other body systems that will be affected. We have the CPU. Now, men, majority of what will happen down there will come from the brains. So if you affect the brains, you're not going to get an erection. Number 6, if you have poor nutrition, and this is categorically for men. If you have poor nutrition, that's you are out there, junk foods, fries here, deep fried, whatever else on the other side, alcohol here, another thing which is not that helpful for you. We have nutrients in the body like zinc that plays a major role in that. So if you don't get that, it becomes a little bit hard for you to even achieve an erection. 1, and especially if you're taking high amount of processed foods, like we can talk about carbohydrates at this point. If you're taking more of that, you're becoming fat, you're accumulating that fat. So you're going to lower your testosterone, because when you have high fat content in the body, you tend to increase the amount of, estrogen in the body, and this will be an antagonist to your testosterone. So you're going to lower your testosterone in your system, and this will contribute to getting that, the issues. And that's why you find that those who are obese or overweight, they really struggle with getting an erection. This is one of the major causes. And by the way, trust me, just go to the gym, shed the weight, remove the fat that you do have, and you're going to notice everything will come back normal, because now testosterone is getting somewhere to breathe through. Chronic stress, this is a major one. Now the reason for that is because you see, it's a slight difference between men and women. Not even a slight, there's a huge difference between how they get an erection, they become sexually aroused. Now for men, it's here. Like I said, you'll have to use your CPU. So when you have stress, it's affecting your CNS. So this is where everything is coming into your imaginations, all the interpretation of the signals, or even the touch. If you are stressed up here, there's nothing. Now women, on the other side, are a bit more interesting. What usually happens is they get a signal interpretation of that. There is an initial signal that will be interpreted in the brains, and then after that, there will be, secretions that will be in the vagina. But then if there is contact in the vagina, we have nerves around there. They go to the spinal cord for them to be transported all the way up to the brains. But then there is something called reflex. The secretion will just continue without even bothering the brains. They're just doing their own things down there. But for the men, it's a bit different. If the brains are, let's say, triggered or maybe distracted, that's the end of the shift. Poor sleep. This is a major one. I'm sure you've noted that each and every morning you usually wake up with an erection. It's quite necessary because this is that time when you wake up with a high. This is when you have a spike in testosterone. If you start noticing that you are not waking up to that erection, we call it a morning bell. If you're waking up without that, then it's high time you just sit down and start evaluating what's going on, because it might be an indication of something coming along your way. So when you sleep, several things happen. We have healing, we have repair, we also have productions. So that's that time when that's happening. So if you disrupt this, then you'll be affected. Your testosterone will be affected. Now the final one, which is number 10, men tend to ignore medical conditions and they usually go to the hospital when it's too late. Now, if you catch diabetes early enough, it can be reversed, diabetes type 2. We have other conditions that can be caught early enough if you make an effort of getting a screening each and every time. Like you can make it semi-annually or maybe annually, just once in a year. Just go get a profile. We have so many wellness packages out there that will look for your vital organs, look for several hormones in the body or even all, and they're going to give you a general wellness check. And this is when you can pick an issue early enough before it's too late, because we are very poor when it comes to seeking help. And by the way, before I forget, now we as men, before we get to 35, we need to build muscles. And this is by going to the gym and also eating proteins and eating well. Build a lot of muscles, because it's going to get to a tipping point where now you cannot build muscles, or you're going to take a really long time before you build anything. So when you're young, because it's easier for you to build muscles, build as much as possible so that when you get to the tipping point, now, at that point you start losing your muscles. You'll have something. Still, it's going to serve you long and you're not going to have issues. A lot of what people usually suffer from if they didn't have enough of those muscles, because most of the time you're going to lose those muscles at the end of it. And they come with repercussions. So we're going to talk about that. So we need to go to a hospital. Now, at least now you have ideas, you have things that you've learned in this video. And maybe you can tell us in the comment region what you are planning to drop or even include as part of your lifestyle to improve your sex life and also your general life. Me, like I said, I'll be walking more. I'm going to exercise and I'll try my best to sit less. I'll include that in my life, and I'll try to put that in the video so that at least you get encouraged, because I also need motivation. I need pressure. That's the right word. See you in the next video.